I know that. All right, everybody, welcome to our book group. Yay! The Next Conversation by Jefferson Fisher
Best book.
was a recommendation from Shannon. Thank you for being here with us today. And those of you that have followed along with our coffee and conversations, you guys know that we use exactly what to say. That's a big component of how we script and talk with, potential clients and other agents. That's how I talk with my kids now. And so I've used a lot of the strategies and exactly what to say in my world. And then Shannon said, the next conversation. That's our next book. And I'm like, okay, I'm all in on it. So.
And it's very complimentary, right?
Very complimentary, yes. So I actually audibled it because that's just easier for me to do than sitting down and reading a book. My commute time is really good for Audible. And I was able to finish it when I was sitting on the beach this weekend, which was really nice. So yeah, so I am curious. There's no shame. There's no judgment. Who here has read the book?
I audible.
You audible, yeah. Okay.
I can't do this.
So I thought it would be good for us to just sort of talk around some of the tactics that Jefferson gives us. You should know that Jefferson's background is he's an attorney. So negotiations are what he does for a living. And he really just brings to light how impactful and important the words that we use are. And even more so, the words we don't use, right? Because sometimes it's not so much about what we say, it's about what we choose not to say and how that can have just a really big impact in your discussions. So do you want to start us off? I have a couple of things I'll bust out, but I'll let you go first.
Well, the one thing I think it would be helpful, kind of one overriding principle that just kind of hit me when I read it, he's a trial attorney. So you think win, 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 win. And we negotiate a lot of things. And so sometimes, even though we talk win-win and we want that, you're still thinking, how do I get what I need? And that is not his mindset at all. His mindset is you're not trying to win. You're trying to understand and you're trying to unravel. And I really like that perspective. And whether you're sitting across the table with someone who's kind of sort of thinking about buying or selling a home, or whether you're negotiating an offer or whatever, or you're talking with your kids, the more you can peel back those layers and understand, the better you're in a position to make a stronger argument. Either maybe you change your position, or B, you're going to make a stronger argument for your side because you really understand where they're coming from, and now you can find that middle ground better and that win-win. And I loved just that mindset of it's not about winning, it's about uncovering and kind of peeling back all the layers and really understanding and getting to the root of the matter. And that's kind of what our exactly what to say questioning is about too. So I love that that's consistent with that.
Yeah, I kind of sort of go back to, I'm going to throw in just another book reference that I think a lot of us know is the Let Them, Mel Robbins' Let Them book. And he sort of alludes to this too. Mel talks a lot about it, that everybody is battling something, right? And everybody ideally they're like a 8-year-old trapped in a grown-up's body. They really are. And so there's so much going on in here when you're having a conversation with people that you have no idea about. And so 90% of the time, what's happening is if they're at you, it's not at you, right? It's that they have a sick mom at home, or they have, a car issue that they don't know how to deal with. And you just happen to be in the middle of a conversation while they're dealing with that.
Or their pre-programmed responses based on past experiences and past traumas. And okay, when this happened, this is how it went. So I'm putting that wall up now and not letting them get there. So it's all that baggage from life.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. One of the most important points that I got from the book that I just was like, oh, it's so simple. And yet I was like, why didn't I think of this before? So, I watch a lot of TV. I don't know if I'm doing too. I watch a lot of TV. I watch, Gilmore Girls and Friends and The Office. And, I have to remind myself that that's scripted. It's scripted. And so when I'm in the middle of an intense conversation or just an important conversation, or When I struggle to find the words, I have to remember that my life is not scripted, right? It's okay for me to pause, take a minute. It's also okay for me to say, I can't continue this conversation right in this moment. Cause I need a minute to process, right? I mean, in the movies, they don't ever do that. I mean, they just, they just go at it until they solve it or it's, yeah. In my world, I have to remember it's not, my conversations aren't always going to look like it does in movies and in TV.
Yeah.
There's reality and there's real people involved and it's okay, that it doesn't look that way.
And kind of like in exactly what to say, one of the things that he talks about is prepping, practicing those conversations like we do in Coffee and Conversations, but then also practicing, and we'll get to some like, there's breathing techniques and there's various things that you can do to keep yourself from getting elevated in a conversation. So, I mean, I use these with my 20-somethings all the time. That's when you're trying to figure out how to
100%.
keep yourself from jumping off the cliff into that emotion that you don't need to. And so the kind of the script and role play that we do helps with all of that and the breathing exercises.
Yeah. How many of you have come to any of the Coffee and Conversation, either in person or on Zoom? Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, if you haven't had an opportunity to jump on that week for the summer, we did just cut back to Wednesdays only because everybody's busy, schedules are crazy. But Wednesdays from 9:15 to 9:45, we are on Zoom or we're up in the cafe, and we are using a lot of these conversational strategies because we'd much rather you have a safe space where you can come and have these practice these dialogues on us in real world scenarios. And so, yeah, just know that opportunity is there for you. And if you need help plugging into that, I'm happy to help. Interestingly enough, most of the notes that I have came from two chapters. The chapter on assertive voice and the chapter on difficult people. And I can tell you that there's a reason that these two chapters spoke to my core, because I have a little bit of, for lack of a better word, I have a little bit of PTSD from a previous employer who was, I would have called her assertive until I read this book. Now I realize that she was not assertive, because assertive is speaking about your needs and speaking up for yourself. She was aggressive. And she would always tell me, you need to be more assertive. You need to be more assertive. And I would just be like, I don't want to be more assertive, because I thought she was, and I didn't want to be like her, right? Like that was, in my mind, assertive was a very negative connotation. This book helped me flesh out the idea that I can be assertive and speak for my needs. And it's okay for me to say, yeah, I'm not really okay with that. That doesn't make me aggressive. Right. And I'm not an aggressive person by nature. But I learned through here that it is okay for me to be assertive.
Yeah.
And to know the difference and recognize when someone's being aggressive, it's all about them and not about me. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Can we talk about the pauses?
Please.
So he has, and because I listened to this a long time ago, and I didn't read that, take notes, which, by the way, new strategy, gonna start doing that while I'm listening.
So just in case you didn't know, because I didn't know until I read this book.
Yeah.
There's a place on your Audible screen where you can click, and it will make a bookmark.
Oh.
On the Audible, it will make a bookmark, and you can then go back and find all your bookmarks. So that's what I did, and then I just typed them out today. So I learned that.
Nice.
I didn't know that was an option. Audible. So if you're listening to it, you can hit a button and it'll just snip that part and put it in a bookmark.
Did you do anything about the conversational breath?
I don't have much in here about that.
That was actually one of my favorite parts.
Yeah. Can you speak to it? Because I even did a video on it and I can't tell you off the top of my head.
Yeah, no.
But it's so good.
Yeah, so parts of it are, if you start to feel yourself get anxious or angry, like just take a pause. And he actually has like a rhythmic breath, so you can start to count. For me, I do box breathing because is the easiest thing for me to remember. But it'll say like breathe in 4 times through your nose, just and then gently.
And you exhale longer.
And yes.
You
Do
exhale
like if
longer.
you breathe in 4, breathe out 5. Just something to remember because you'll be focused on that breath, and it actually just helps you reset.
Mhm.
And then you can answer with calm instead of when you tend to answer with anger or anxiousness, then you say the wrong thing.
And it escalates.
And it escalates. And that was like, so now like if I start to feel my heart, I'll breathe in through my nose and then and most people don't even know this.
Hmm.
Like
No,
most
they don't.
people have no clue that it's even happening.
Yeah.
And part of the reason people don't realize it is because they're thinking about what they're gonna say, they're thinking about what they're gonna do. They're not, that part of our biggest challenge is we don't pay enough attention to the other person. If we did, peeling back that onion would be so much easier.
Exactly.
But we're focused on my point of view, right? And so if you take that breath and you calm yourself down and then, ask a clarifying question or give your statement and then be quiet. It gives opportunities to understand what's going on with the other person. And a lot of times he talks about like when somebody says something that is hurtful. And I used this with one of my kids the other day, as I took a breath and I said, did you mean to say that? And then he shut up, which is really hard for me. But he at first was like, and he went, that was really mean. I said, kind of. And then I didn't say anything else. And he started with, well, Mom, you don't understand, blah, 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 blah. But then he got around to, no, I don't understand. And I didn't say a word. I just sat there kind of looking at him, like I'm doing with Andrew right now, just kind of looking at him in a real, not angry, not excited, nothing, just looked at him. And he spun himself from, that was really inappropriate. I'm so sorry. Here's what I really meant. Thank you for helping me. It like became this really good conversation. And all I did was breathe and ask if that was his intent.
And
then be quiet.
Be quiet. And I think
That's it.
If I remember correctly, he even said you could use the breathing in that quiet to keep you quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
but
Because that's the hardest part.
oftentimes I'll have like water or coffee. I mean, I always have coffee. And like, if I feel like I want to say something, I just sit. Pretty sit.
You sip a lot.
I think a lot of sipping.
And he's giving out all her trade secrets now, we know.
What did you want?
Yeah.
Well, it's because for me, and I think as moms, we tend to, we have the wisdom, and so we just want to tell you all the answers. And like we want, but really, like with your son, if you told him, it would have just escalated and he wouldn't have heard a word you said, but allowing him to just have that space and self-discover that wasn't appropriate. I'm sorry. Here's what I really meant. This is what I'm feeling.
Yeah.
All because you didn't, as Dave used to say, don't pee on them, which is perspective. Don't give your perspective all over this person.
Yeah.
Yeah,
One
I
of the-
love the breath.
One of the things that Jefferson talked about too that really hit me was like, there are people in this world, again, I'm gonna go back to the difficult people because that speaks to me. There are going to be people that they actually get a dopamine hit by being mean. That it makes them feel good to put you down, to belittle you, to have a confrontation with you. It literally triggers dopamine in their brain and makes them happy. And so just along with what Shannon was saying, when somebody is insulting you, when someone is making you just feel less than for any reason, the best thing that you can do is pause, because it stops that dopamine hit for them. And it does make them do that self-reflection of like, oh crap, that maybe wasn't the nicest thing for me to say. And again, what I took from this book, a lot of times it's all about what you don't say versus what you do say. So just
Yeah.
having that stare down, having
Yeah.
that like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and letting it get uncomfortable.
letting it get uncomfortable for a minute, yeah. What are some, I'm curious, what are some, ways that you see this play out in, some of your real estate transactions? Or, Chris, with, I mean, all the agents that, that your agents deal with in negotiations and deals getting ready to fall apart, like, what are some ways that we can tactfully put this into play in our conversation?
Yeah. So I personally have seen, for whatever reason, right now I'm dealing with lots of older people that are transitioning. And they've got 30 years worth of stuff. And they're going into a 2-bedroom, 2-bath house or apartment.
Mhm.
And they don't want to get rid of anything. And when they do get rid of it, they want to sell it.
Mhm.
Which is, you need to sell the house, not the stuff, right? Because the house is actually going to make you money and get you to the 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment. But the stuff
Is typically not.
is
worth the-
not, very, very little of it is worth a whole lot of stuff. So one of the things that I've been trying to do, because like we bring in people to help them and they get anxious and everything. And so the whole feel felt found thing that I do, I've been working with clients and trying to get them like taking the breath and saying, so tell me more about how that feels, and letting them get through their anxiety over it. And then coming back to the, I understand exactly how you feel. It's like you're being asked to get rid of 35 years worth of your life. Other clients have felt the same way, but what they found is you still have all those memories. So you pick a few of the keepsakes that are most important to you and hold on to that. And then you let the other stuff go. And because it gives you more room for the next chapter and the things that you're going to want to bring into that life. And so the conversational breaths, the letting them get their thoughts out and not saying anything, let them go off the deep end and kind of talk themselves from up to down. And then coming in with kind of a guiding principle, I think has been really helpful because they don't feel heard and they don't feel valued. And they think we're all just rushing them to get their stuff out. But we're rushing them to meet the timetable that they said they need to, because they gotta have the money for this apartment at this time. And so it's a really uncomfortable thing. And having that opportunity to let them go from high to low and not say a word, not try and talk them into anything, has been really helpful for me
Mhm. I like that.
in prepping people.
It's not necessarily real estate transactional related, but I could see it coming up in transactions, especially agent to agent. But I went into a pretty tough conversation the other day and with 2 people, and I just said, listen, from the book, you're not here to, it's not about being right. It's not about winning. We might not then agree at the end of this conversation. That's not the point, but the point is to overcome the hurdle that the pain is creating. So can we find, like, I just kind of, he talks about set the tone, like what's the goal of the conversation? So I did that. And I said, the goal is that can we find a path to at least get to the finish line together, even if we can't necessarily agree on who handled it well or what have you. And I do think that helped because then both people understood like, okay, Brittany's not taking sides. And she's not here to be like, you win and you're the loser. Like, it was just, all right, so now we have to face each other and face the situation and create a path. And I did, I kept biting my tongue and like breathing. So allowing them to just work it out. And they both had to stop. We got to a point where, all right, we're emotionally charged still, understandably. Let's take a break and we can reconvene. And then the next day they slept on it. The next day they ended up just solving it on their own.
Yeah. So that's a conversational framework where you set the goal and then you have what's the step number 2? So you're telling them what it's about.
Yeah.
Then you're like setting the specific goal or outcome that you're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
And then you're getting buy-in. So we need to have a conversation to figure out how we're gonna move forward on this transaction. at the end of this conversation, I'd like us to have steps that we're gonna take to get there. Does now work?
Yeah, yeah, and I think there was like an expectations thing, like.
Yeah.
Kind of setting rules, like we're not gonna yell at each other, we're not gonna point fingers,
Right.
like I just set kind of like those ground rules of, and it will be respectful.
Yeah, I like that. One of the things that our team is working on that came from this is to say it with confidence. And for all of anybody who's new here, I think this is a really good thing. We sit down and talk to a buyer. And sometimes but depending on their personality, it might feel like they're trying to control the situation and they're like telling us, I know more than you do. But the reality is, we play into that by saying, well, I don't know if you're gonna like think this is a good idea or not, but I was kind of thinking maybe sort of, and then we say our idea. And it happens not just in real estate, it happens in life. And I find particularly, watch women, we do it all the time. This might be stupid, but.
Does that make sense?
Does that make sense?
Do you
These
understand what I'm saying?
These are the phrases that kill your confidence and the perception that they have of you.
Or the word just.
Or, yeah, I find myself saying, kind of. I was kind of thinking, and I'm like, oh my God, you weren't kind of thinking, Shannon. This is my thought. And so I think that was a really helpful piece because now I catch it. I hear myself say it. I hear other people say it. And I'm like, no. So if I hear you say it in the hall, I'm gonna go. Because we can't do that. It erodes your self-esteem. It makes you seem more scattered, she might know what she's talking about. We know what we're talking about, right? We know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And even if I don't know exactly the answer to your solution, I have all these people that I can go back to that will have experienced this, and then I can ask them. So I still have more access and knowledge than you do, because I deal with 220 people who do this for a living, right? So we have to start speaking like we are confident, and we gotta get rid of those words, all of those crazy words.
What do you got, Andrew?
Well, so there was I used to listen to a speaker. I met him a couple times. I mean, super charismatic guy. Ended up actually going to his house. But he's just very intentional with the words that he uses. And one thing that he used to say instead, and I heard him, and I realized that he did it while he was, publicly speaking to a room of 8,000 people.
Right.
And he said, "Are you tracking me?" Like whenever he would say it. So
like
instead,
it.
he kind of put that on that, like, "Hey, are you following what I'm leading?"
Yeah.
And hey, are you tracking me? And the way that he said it too. But no, people loved him, and I don't like, never once did it come across. Either A, that he didn't know what he was talking about, or B, that it was too much, that it was almost arrogant or anything like that. And people were like, "Yeah, okay,
Are you tracking me?" I like
but
that.
are you tracking me?"
Yeah.
So that's my.
I like that.
No, I love that. I think, and that's the thing, we have to come up with phrases. Where do we go from here? Where would you like to go from here? That was one,
So much of it is tonality too. So
Yeah.
where do we go from here?
Yeah.
Kind of and a body language thing.
right,
So much of
right.
it
You're
is-
leaning in, and there's so many things that we can do, but and I'm the worst offender. You gotta say it with less words.
That's one of my points.
Yeah, gotta say it with less words. And I talk around things all the time, but you gotta say it with less words.
I loved that, when he would give you like an example.
Here, I remembered it, and I do this all the time in our huddles. I'll be like, Brittany, I was on my way to work this morning, and I saw this red car, and it made me think of this great idea. Whatever I'm saying next, she is not listening to me, because she is thinking about A, her drive to work, or B, the last red car she saw.
Yeah,
I am
neither of which matter.
None of that is pertinent to the idea that I have that I really wanna tell her about.
Right.
But she is now unengaged in my conversation because I have distracted her with words that mean nothing.
I'm a big offender of that.
Oh my gosh,
Same.
that was such a huge aha for me reading this. I was like, oh my God, I do it all the time.
We tell everybody how I got
Yes.
this thought.
Yes, and you don't need to
Come
know.
on this journey with.
You don't need to know.
And here's the thing, because I've tried to be better about this. And so with my husband, I'll just throw something out. It's like, where did that come from? And I'm like, glad you asked. And then I can backtrack it,
I
but
like
he's
that.
asked for the knowledge now.
I
So
like
it's
that.
okay,
I like
as
that.
opposed to spinning the story. And part of it, you also have to think about, why do you do what you do? So my problem is I talk and then think. And that's the way I process.
Mm.
And there are other people that do that too. If you can be a think to talker as opposed to a talk to thinker, it's probably easier for you to use less words. But
How do you
even,
think you get to that point?
that's a great question.
How do you think you
I-
get to that point? Is that how?
More
is that-
script and
Is
role
that
play,
hardwired or can that be taught?
more practice.
Yeah, can you be taught?
More
that?
practice.
And then it's almost acknowledging, okay, I just had this conversation. This is how it goes. You almost have to debrief yourself.
Yeah.
How could I have done that better?
Mm.
And as a leadership team, we do that a lot. We'll have a meeting. At the end of actually every meeting on Mondays, we rate the meeting.
Yeah.
Scale of 1 to 10.
Do you ever record the meetings?
I thought about doing that with like an otter, but we have not done that yet to see the script
Yeah.
and just be like, wow, we
We really.
over talked about this thing.
Yeah.
And it could have been so much shorter.
Saved a lot of time, yeah.
Yeah.
I just thought of, here's how I can do it. I can be comfortable with the pause. Because what
Right.
happens is Andrew asks me a question and I want to look knowledgeable, so I start talking. And I tell the story that leads to the answer to the question. And it works, because storytelling is good. But what I should really do is take a breath, get my thoughts together, give Andrew my story, and then if Andrew looks a little hesitant, or give Andrew my answer, if he looks a little hesitant, can I tell you about how we use this with another client? And then you tell the story. You kind of got permission to expand on it.
And now they're ready for the.
And now they're ready for it. But I gotta get comfortable with the pause.
Right. Yeah,
I have to not feel like I have to jump in.
the pause is everything. Because if you're right, it's not just about regulating emotion, it's also about making sure that what you say next is the thing that they need to hear.
Yeah,
And it adds gravitas to whatever comes next after that pause too.
right,
Yeah,
It gives so much more.
because they're
emphasis.
waiting.
Right.
right. And I think you have to say the idea and then back it up. I tend to tell the story and then say the idea, and they got lost in the story and they don't care anymore. And they're like, oh my God.
Land the plane.
I'm fairly certain I win deals because they don't want to hear me anymore.
Oh my gosh. Stop it.
Go away.
Yeah, for me, sometimes I throw in a lot of words because I'm not as confident. So I feel like I either need to,
Overcompensate.
yeah, like I need to tell the story so that they understand my rationale, so that way I don't think I look like I'm incompetent.
Yeah, and in chapter 7, I specifically made a note. He says, confidence comes from creating experiences that build my confidence, which only comes from doing. Confidence is as assertiveness does.
Read that again.
Confidence comes from creating experiences that build confidence, which comes from doing. Confidence is as assertiveness does. So you're only going to get confident by the doing of it. You just have to do the scripts and the role plays. You just have to
Coffee
do the coffee and
conversation.
conversation in the safe space that then when you go out and talk to your clients, you will feel more confident. And then the other thing that he said around that was to make people believe you to sound more confident, you have to use less words. You create a deficit of attention with too many words.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I firmly believe being able to say, that's a great question, and I want to make sure I have the best answer. Let me get back to you.
Mm.
And then you don't answer that question in that meeting. You get on the phone as you're leaving the appointment and say, I'm calling, phone a friend. How would you handle this? And then as soon as you get consensus on what you want to say to them, you reach back out and say, we had a conversation, you asked this question, I wanted to make sure I had the best answer. Here's how we should move forward. and you do it as quickly as you possibly can, people respect that more than somebody that wings it.
And that's the thing too, I think that it's, and I'm sorry to just jump in, but I think that it's okay to not necessarily ask, I don't wanna say ask for permission, but if you were to say something along the lines of, I'm not sure that the way that I can say this right now is exactly how I want this to be communicated. Let me come back to you with it, and I think being able to kind of, whenever you can kind of spell that out.
Yeah,
And you're saying, hey, I'm going to take more time.
Yeah.
Because I'm
let me
going
think
to-
on it.
Yeah, exactly, yeah, I don't think that, I think so often, just like you were saying, I think so often we, you know, to come across some kind of way, we feel like we need to have the answer right then and there. I think, yeah, I think just so much of it is just about communicating that, hey, even if you know, I'm not in love with the answer that I have for you right now. Let me work on.
Yeah.
Let me work on a few things. I'm gonna get back to you with the answer.
And I think,
And I think you communicate confidence.
and I think you're exactly right. And I think being able to say, you know, there's lots of ways we can go. We think on which one's the best one for us. I think it gets easier to say that when you are more confident. So like, I'm very comfortable saying that today. When I was newer, I was not comfortable saying that, but I'm gonna tell you, we still said it. I say it today, you gotta say it then. Just take the step, make the decision to say, let me get more information and get back to you. And if you do that, they're going to trust what you say more. And then you're gonna trust what you say more, because you're gonna know that you have resources and it will build on each other. And just know that 14 years in the business, I still have that conversation and still say, I need to think on that. People will ask me the other day, do I really have to paint and carpet everything? Do I really need to do all of this work? And I had to take a hot minute because the one down the street just sold. And they didn't do all that. The market's changing. And I think they're gonna get dramatically more. So I was able to pull data and show them what that one got versus what this one would get, and it was like 3 times what they were gonna invest. So now they're okay with that. But I didn't have that data in my hand that second.
Yeah, you don't have to have the answer right that second.
Right.
Nor do you have to have the capacity to have the conversation. Which I think is another powerful tip is, especially if it's gonna be a difficult conversation, of just letting someone know, you know, I don't have the capacity to have this conversation right now. Can we schedule it at this time? Or can we meet tomorrow and discuss it then? If the breath isn't enough to bring you down, sometimes it is better to just say, I can't do this today. Let's chat another time.
I really like the way he said, I don't really love the answer I have for you right now, so let me talk to you later. Because sometimes I'm overly quiet because I don't want to agree with the pessimism or the complaint. And then they'll push me in a corner until I tell them what they want to hear. And if they don't get the words from me, they'll keep going. And so
That's what deep personalities do.
so I like that answer because it kind of centers yourself and it's like, you're not gonna wanna hear what I have to say, so let me take accountability for my behavior and give you the best version of me another time. And I like that.
You know,
Yeah.
V, you just brought up a great thing. One of the things, having hard conversations, he's like, call it out right then. And this is one of the things that he had in there.
Got this
I
one, but I
love this
loved
one.
it.
I love this one. It's in these notes too. Basically, it was, this is gonna be hard for you to hear. But the data,
Like you set the standard.
this is gonna be hard for you to hear.
If you have to, like it said, you know, in an HR environment, if you have to let someone go, you don't invite them into your office and be like, how are you doing?
How was your weekend?
What, anything exciting going on?
No.
And then, no, you sit them down and you set the expectation that this is gonna be a really tough conversation.
Right, and now they're prepared.
And
I love time sleep, you know, I know what,
yeah,
I know it's
yeah,
coming.
They know
Yeah,
anyway.
but it's even the same thing, you know, with my kids.
Yeah,
Like setting the expectation with my kids. Last night, we had to have a difficult conversation around screen time.
Yeah.
And bedtimes and things that we're not going to do. And when
Right.
we sat down, I wasn't like, hey, how you doing? It was like,
Right.
we're gonna have a discussion. You're probably not gonna be really happy with me when this is done. And,
yet,
and,
blah, blah, blah.
and here's what's happening.
I
Yeah.
love having that so if you do a good job pre-qualifying people, when they're talking about either the price range they're gonna buy in, but they haven't been pre-approved yet, or what they think their house is gonna sell for, and it's $100,000 more. And, you know, we get that all the time, and then you have to go and you have to give them a reality check. That this is really more what you can afford to buy based on your pre-approval, or this is more likely the price that your house is going to sell for. Being able to say, you know what, I've gotta give you some news you're not gonna love. And then they're like, what? And you're like, I did a market analysis, and unfortunately, the pricing that we had discussed that you really wanted is not realistic in this market at this time for this home. Let me show you my data, and then let's talk about it.
And but like Violetta said, you know, telling them what they wanna hear is only gonna make that
Right.
situation worse.
Right.
Like, you're better off just to rip the Band-Aid,
You're
Have-
kicking the can down the road.
Right.
yeah,
Right.
have the conversation now.
And when they come back, you'll go, well, then I'm not gonna sell it for that. It's like, okay, well, then you have a couple of options. You can decide not to sell, you can try and rent it, or and wait and see how it goes, or we can put it at the price that I suggest and see if we can drive it up a little bit. What do you wanna do? And if they say, I'm only gonna list it at this price, I would probably tell you, I understand, but I'd rather disappoint you now than disappoint you in the future. And this market isn't gonna support that, and if it's way off, and I don't wanna waste your time or mine. I can't afford to waste your time or mine. And then you walk away and you become the second person in when it doesn't sell. Cause we're fast approaching that market.
Yes,
We're fast approaching that market.
yes.
Mhm.
One thing too that I like about, the book is he talks about how conflict can actually lead to connection. So, cause it builds trust when you can have that hard conversation, when you can say, what I'm about to tell you, you're not gonna like. They build more trust with you because you were willing to say the thing that every other agent that they're interviewing just sugarcoated and told them what they wanted to hear to get the deal.
Mhm.
You'll win more. In fact, I think it was Erica Rawls one time shared a story that she ended up telling someone, you know, where I'm not the best fit for you because X, Y, Z, like what they wanted and what her level of service, they weren't gonna match. And they appreciated that so much that they referred her other business.
Yeah,
Wow.
Can I say a few things?
I love that.
Because I've been taking notes. So
Quiet.
my communication style is I like to observe and then talk, because I wanna know how I can best provide, communication in the setting. So for most of you who don't know, like I've been here for 3 years now, and for 2.5 of those years, I didn't speak to anyone. I was just observing everyone. And
Yeah.
exactly. And so I was observing everyone because I wanted to know who I felt like I could trust. I wanted to know what I can and can't say to certain people. I wanted to know what would be the most effective communication to people. Then I became a business owner with Tammy, and then that kind of like forced me to get out of my shell. And so certain things, because as you guys were talking, I didn't feel triggered, but I definitely felt like I was being attacked. But I am that difficult person, that person who is aggressive and not assertive. I am assertive, but I do have an aggressive side of me, and it does come from childhood and
Sure.
adolescent trauma. So
Stat splatting players.
yeah. So whereas Shannon, the way she was explaining, talking to her children, where it's more of a, let's pull back the onion, let's figure out the layers. My childhood is built on a shelf. You got something to say? Here. Okay, don't call child line. So I am a mandated reporter. So anyways, that's very much how I am, and as a business owner, it's taken me a few situations for me to get over, to figure out how to not provide the aggression, but be the assertive person.
Sure.
And so like when I'm listening to this book, full disclosure, Chris does not read. It's because I don't like reading, but they're talking about the book, and so the person that they're talking about is essentially me. And how do you deal with that is that you just, like Shannon said, you let them talk. Because there was a situation not too long ago where I did react to something very aggressively. And then after I had my dopamine hit, not that I was trying to get to the dopamine, but it happened.
Just happened.
There was a long pause. And then I was sitting with what I had just unleashed. And then had to backtrack.
Yep.
Not necessarily backtrack on what I said, but how I said it and in a manner in which I said it. And then going to Brittany's situation where conflict can create connections. Because of the situation, not only did I feel as though that I need to strengthen that connection with them, but it also gave me an opportunity to be vulnerable with those people. And sit down with them at breakfast and be able to unleash a little bit of my vulnerability that I've not done in 3 years. So hold on, I got a little note here. And so the assertiveness versus aggression, I like the confidence talk because for me, it's taken a lot of data input to figure out how to be confident with people. But when I remember when I first started, Shannon was my mentor. And the same advice that she's giving you today is the same advice that she gave me back then. Sort of a fake it to make it, but don't fake it too much. You want to take exactly what Drew and Shannon have said. Listen, like if you don't know something, the one thing that I love about KW and that you'll learn as you stay here is that it's a very collaborative environment. And so you can sit there and while it may be a small white lie, it's not terribly like a terrible lie. Hey, listen, I have a team of dedicated colleagues that will help collaborate with me on this. This is a very tricky situation, and I want to make sure that I give you the correct answer. Something similar to that, I like Drew's very much, and I'll probably use that, in my business going forward. And so that's something that, you should definitely take with you. Body language is a big one. For me, body language doesn't come, I don't always have to watch my body language because some people say that I'm very intimidating, stature. And so I try not to use that, but I do use it a lot. So body language is one to watch because I do have to be aware that some people I do intimidate, and it's not because I'm talking to them a certain way, it's because they're looking at my stature. Confidence. This is a big one. I have a military background and I have a teaching background. And two things that I can tell you about confidence is that confidence not only comes from failing, but so does learning. So when the best teachers in life will be when you fail. And so don't let an opportunity that you feel as though that you didn't achieve something or accomplish something be wasted, because I have failed multiple times in my life, very rock bottom-ish and, very superficial at the same time. And I've let all of them be my teachers.
Sure.
Now, and then the thinking about thinking, I love this. So this is also a teaching background of mine. So metacognition is thinking about thinking. And so in teacher programs, you'll learn about reflection. And so it gets beaten to like a dead horse. So what you want to do, and it works, so you can laugh at it though, is take a mirror and then have a conversation with yourself and talk to yourself about how that conversation went with that person, or talk about how, for us, it was that lesson. How did those kids learn? Did you do the right things? Did you do these steps? Did you do this? And you're having a conversation with yourself, and it feels very, very funny at first, but then you won't need the mirror as much, and then you'll start talking to yourself, and you'll start just doing it second nature. So a lot of things that you're going to be doing with clients, buyers, sellers, or even preferred vendors and things like that, you're going to want to have a conversation with yourself afterwards, because you want to know if you executed that thing efficiently, effectively. how did that conversation go? Did it go the way that I wanted to go? And if it didn't, why didn't it go that way? And you are now training your brain, because I've been doing it for 15 years now. You're training your brain to second nature, think about thinking. And so now I don't need the mirror anymore. But initially I did have like a little circle mirror from the Dollar Tree, and I would sit there and have a conversation with myself, because in teaching, that is how they teach you to teach. Because they want to know if you were most effective for the kids that you had in your classroom, because it could be 15 kids, it can be 30 kids. So.
Sure, it's made you very introspective.
There.
And I think part of the mirror thing, I'm wondering if that ties to, like Mel Robbins and the high five habit.
I was thinking the same thing.
And you high five yourself in the morning because your brain like doesn't realize that it's just a reflection of you. And so when you're talking and you're kind of having like a coaching conversation with yourself, your brain like thinks you're having it with another face.
And I love that.
I love that.
I love that. And I love that you are suggesting debrief every conversation, every meeting that you have with people, because you're gonna find in this business, sometimes you can go in and have a terrible, like listing a presentation or buyer presentation, and you still end up with the business. And sometimes you can go in and have the best, like, oh my God, I nailed it.
Yes.
And they go with someone else. And you're like, and then when they do, have the conversation in the mirror and then pick up the phone and say, hey, I really appreciated the opportunity. I understand you went with someone else. It would be super helpful if you could give me some feedback and let me know if there was something I did or didn't do, or something that I could have done to win your business and your trust. Ask the question. If they don't answer, leave it on a voicemail. Sometimes people don't call you back, but you would be amazed at the people that do. And the learning that you get, you're like, okay, now I know. And it's that little thing, and the experience of asking that question got me a referral from somebody who picked somebody else, didn't have a great experience, referred me to their neighbor. Neighbor had a great experience. When they decided to relist their house the next year, guess who they called? But it was solely because I said, I really love the opportunity. I'm not calling to, say, why did you pick me? I just would love the learning. It would be super helpful for me if you would share.
Wow.
And they gave me some feedback. I was like, oh, that's really helpful. I didn't realize I did that. So thank you. I appreciate the candor.
Mental space you probably have to evolve with that. You'll definitely have to be in to be able to take that feedback then and be like.
Yeah. But
"Alright."
that's why I had to talk to myself in the mirror
Right.
before and go, what's the worst thing that can happen? They say, I just don't like you as a person. Okay, what's the best thing that can happen? They give you some data that will save you from making the same mistake the next time. And so it's probably gonna be somewhere in between. Very rarely does the worst thing that you project happen. And very rarely does the best thing that you have project happens. It's usually somewhere in the middle. So that's another strategy. If you're worried about a conversation or whatever, think of the best and the worst. It's probably somewhere in between.
Yeah.
So I just recently had a listing that fell through,
Mhm.
but our communication was email. So should I have called Bill and say, hey, what did I do wrong, or whatever the conversation is? Because I just responded in an email saying, can you give me some feedback, and there was no reply.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
should I have called instead of?
I would try. I would always, anytime that you, particularly if you want to get like real feedback, I would try and talk to that person. I really would. I had one lady that, she kept talking about, I'm interviewing, and I finally said, hey, can we go to coffee? And she was like, I don't want to go to coffee. I said, okay. I said, I'm trying to understand where you're coming from, because it's been like 6 months that you've been talking about interviewing people. So I'm wondering if you actually want to sell your house or not.
Mhm.
And it's okay if you don't. I'll stop bugging you. But maybe it's about more than that. The lady finally went to coffee. She had no interest in selling her house. She was getting all these pressure, and we came up with some other strategies for her, and now we're friends.
Oh.
And she may never use me to sell her house, but she didn't sell with anybody else either, so. But anytime you can get face to face with somebody or voice to voice with somebody, I think there's no tone issues, there's no, I mean, you know what you're talking about.
I have a potential, I guess, a potential seller, before I came to Keller Williams, I was at this, what is it? An event, and so I didn't know what to say, and I ended up talking to the guy, and the next day he called me and asked me to come see his house, so I went, and, he said, last October, he said that, he was ready to list in December, because he wanted to move to South Carolina, but health issues happened, and,
Sure.
he had to have surgery, and then now his girlfriend had surgery, so they're going to physical therapy. So every, I would check back, and he said, "Oh, I'm ready in like a few months." I would check back in a few months, and he would say, "Yeah, I'm just waiting for her to go to physical therapy, and then I'll come sign the paper." So he did say, "Don't have to worry, you got the listing, but it is signing or."
Yeah.
So I don't want to feel like I'm pressuring him, or I would.
Call about something else.
Mhm.
Don't call about his listing. Call about, hey, I just wanted to give you an understanding of kind of what we're seeing in the market these days, because I know at some point you're probably going to be interested in selling. Call about something else. Call about something you found out about a PT. You know what I mean? Or about call about anything but
You have-
specifically
you
signing
have
the
his
papers.
address?
Yeah, well, the thing is, he's a texter, we don't call.
No.
So text about it.
Send him like a piece of mail, like a get well soon,
Yeah.
card,
With a coffee.
like a coffee,
Thank
like a
you.
$5
Thank you.
card
Yeah.
to Starbucks.
Yeah.
And then, send it 7 to 10 days later, because you're in the mail, just give him a call.
Make sure he got
it. Yeah, by then, if he hasn't texted you back, saying he got the card, just give him, hey, just wanted to see if you got my card, wanted to see, it has to be completely not about the house at all.
Really?
Because that's
Yeah.
my problem,
I love
I'm afraid that I'm just calling to see, you still want to sell your house, like, I don't know what to
Right,
say.
Right, so you don't want to do that. You want to develop the relationship with him. And if he says, call me in 3 months, check in 6 weeks. You know what I mean? Just a check in, not a real estate, just, oh my gosh, I was, I saw a house the other day that went on the market that's kind of sort of like yours. I'll keep an eye on what it sells for. Whatever, something, anything, or just, something about PT, something about South Carolina. I understand these 3 cities are some of the top cities in South Carolina,
Yeah,
whatever.
Do you know where he's moving to in South Carolina?
no, they were just trying to get out of the cold.
Well,
Yeah.
so yeah, then that would be,
Yeah, 'cause he-
if you knew a city, you could be like, hey, these are the 3 hotspot restaurants in that
Right.
city. I didn't know if you knew that or not.
Yeah, he was, that was the main reason why he was moving, because his name is bothering him.
Yeah.
And then, he was coming to have surgery.
Yeah,
And then they both have surgery, so he was her caregiver,
yeah,
because she was having knee issues, and then it ended up. both
and now
having-
he is too.
Yeah, so I think he had his first, and then she had hers after.
Yeah.
So, I just don't wanna feel like I'm bugging him.
Talk about anything but real estate.
Okay.
Like every 3rd or 4th contact should be real estate. Everything else should be
Yeah.
relationship. Because then they really will sign the papers, because they like you as a person.
Yeah, cause that's what when I got there, I had no idea what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
And I don't like scripts, I like to just have a normal conversation, cause I could be me.
Okay, so I'm gonna cut you off because I was you.
Okay.
You do scripts. You do scripts all the time. You just don't realize
Oh,
it.
I guess.
You have mentally in your mind, you have things that you would kind of sort of think about saying.
Yeah,
That's script.
well,
It's
I mean, I
just
was thinking of
yours.
having this whole PowerPoint with bells and whistles and try to sell this person, I don't, that's not
But
me.
you don't have to do that.
I just need.
Honestly,
How would you need?
don't yell at me, Brittany. But if you don't bring a darn thing in, you just ask good questions, you're gonna walk away with that mistake.
Oh, no, I would never-
100%.
I would never disagree with that.
You-
There's a reason why Gary Muccio goes to his listing appointments with nothing.
Yeah, a pad of paper to write
To
down
write
the
down.
question, the answers to the questions that he asks. That is what people want. People don't want, hey, you want to sell your house, you want to sell your house, you want to sell your house, I'm the one. They don't care about that. That's about you, not about them. All they want is to know that you care and that you're gonna do what you can to make sure they maximize their return. It's a painless opportunity and they get out of it, as clean as possible. That's what they want. You don't have to have a PowerPoint. You don't have to memorize certain words. You have to have thought through situations that are gonna come up and what they're gonna ask you, and you have to have a point of view
Okay.
on things. That's what you gotta do. And that's a script. It doesn't have to be somebody else's. It's just, how are you going to answer the obvious question when they say they wanna price their house $20,000 over what you know it'll sell for? Or what they're gonna ask you to, that you have to do to prep. Do I really have to do that? Do I really have to put away all my China doll figures? Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you gotta find a way to say that with empathy. But yeah, you gotta do that. Those are scripts.
Okay, because when I went to see the listing, he asked like, what do you think I should do? He got a attic space where, looks like they haven't updated since it was the worst color green carpet you could probably think of.
yeah.
And that's where they have their master, and they have cats, so it
Yeah,
smells.
so it
and-
smells like cats.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so then he'd ask, do you think I should replace the carpet? Do you think, cause he had updated downstairs with laminate. And I said, if you don't really wanna spend the money, you could give them a credit and they can do whatever they want with the space. And,
We'll talk later.
okay.
Because when they walk up and smell cat,
Yeah,
It's over.
They're done, yep,
yeah.
they're done.
yeah.
So, cause
Yeah.
him and his 90-plus-year-old dad is doing renovation,
Yeah.
so it's a really slow.
We got carpet people. We can help you. out.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I need help with this, cause
Yeah.
we'll talk.
One thing I want to tie back to that Chris mentioned was he said he felt attacked because he was the aggressor, right? I think part of the book even does talk about like, you have to have that self-awareness because you need to know who you are in the conversation, so that way you can figure out how to get better. So a lot of the conversations that you're having are simply just self-awareness about who you are as a person. And I realize that I am the one that probably bores people because I use way too many words. Right, so get to the point. Clear is kind. Get to the point. Clear is kind.
Does anyone like people watching,
Oh,
right?
all day, every day.
So, two things, especially for you, is when you are on those consultations, you're essentially people watching, but you're people listening. You're having a relationship kind of conversation where Shannon has said, you don't want it to feel like scripts, but there are scripts that are very relationship oriented. And from us, looking at it from a macro, as our company does all the transactions for most of the agents, we find that the ones that have the most relationships are the ones that are producing more because they feel as though that they're part of the family. But the only way that they do that is that they're listening and they're watching. So like when I used to go, it was great because I used to just write down everything. Don't underestimate the pen and the pad, because one thing that people want to know, and this is why I find people that are waitresses and waiters very impressive when they come and they have a 6-person or like a 6 top or a 10 top, and they sit there and they listen to every single one of you and they have all of that and they don't make a mistake on your food order. I find it impressive because they didn't have a notepad. For me, when I was doing counter narcotics in the Caribbean, when we used to do investigations, one of our instructors who had like a psych background said that nothing is mightier than the pen and the paper, because it doesn't matter if you know what they're saying, you're gonna keep it up here. If you're taking notes, they feel as though that you're doing something for them.
You're heard.
And you're heard. And so it doesn't matter if you know that as soon as you walk up there, that attic smells like, or that upstairs smells like cat pee, and you're never gonna forget it because it's a very distinct smell, and you'll probably smell it when you go home. When you go up there and you talk about it, he's like, oh, what are we thinking about doing this? And like, oh, let me, I'm gonna have to take some notes on this and see what we can do about that, because you're addressing an issue, but you're also listening, your people listening. That's where the pause comes in. It's very much, hey, what do you think about this? And then just shut up and then just listen. And then, there's a very traditional, like sales thing where they say the first person that speaks loses. That is very much true. The only thing I would say now is that it's not as defined as that, because you still have a relationship base. So it'd be kind of awkward if you sat there for like 20 minutes and no one talked to each other. But, yeah. But they are going to talk to you, so you set things in motion and then you listen. And then while they're talking, you're still sitting there with the pen and paper because they feel, again, that they're heard.
The cat view thing, you can ask them, just curious, have you ever walked into a room or a space somewhere and you had like a strong smell that was kind of off-putting?
Mhm.
They're gonna probably say yes. How did you feel? Was that inviting to you? Did that make you think, ooh, I want to spend more time here? If the answer is no to any of those questions, likely that's how a buyer's gonna feel that doesn't like cats maybe,
Mhm.
that walks into your house and smells that. It's safer for us to appeal to more buyers for us
Mhm.
to go ahead and replace that now. But that means we have to make sure that we can keep the cats from making a mess.
Mhm.
So
Well,
do you think you can do that?
Well, he had asked, what I thought would, but I was brand new, I mean.
Yeah,
The first
sure.
thing I was thinking, and then I met, Lynn, and he does
Yeah.
like,
Yeah,
yeah, stuff like that, and then, so I think his main concern was because he had, replaced the downstairs with a laminate. He couldn't find more matching,
yeah,
so I said, you don't really have to use the
It's
same
upstairs.
type, you could just use carpet and.
Yeah. yeah. Or
It doesn't have to
Or
be-
a different laminate that's gonna clean up well.
Yeah, right,
Because laminate's not gonna soak in and smell again,
yeah.
most likely.
Happy birthday, Grace.
Thank you.
So he wasn't like,
Yeah.
he was just asking
Yeah.
information.
Yeah.
And he,
It's okay to change your mind too. It's okay to say, you know what, the more I've been thinking about it, I went and tell a story. I was talking to somebody who went into a house the other day that had a really strong food smell. And they talked about how off-putting it was to their client. And their client didn't spend enough time to fall in love with the house because they wanted to get away from the smell.
okay,
Made me worry that that could happen to you.
right.
So now I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking maybe we should go ahead right before you sell and replace that.
Cause since they, seems like they're packing up anyway, so the house will be empty of the cats and they can do whatever they need to do.
I have a question with that. Is it like a bad thing to be so direct with your answers? Cause I hear a lot of like building up to your answer. Whereas like I'm a type of person that they're like, does it smell? I'm like, yeah, it smells really bad. Like I'm not gonna build it up.
I was just about to say something to it and you're so good in the build up too, in the like, hey, listen, I'm gonna tell you something you don't wanna hear. Here's the soft pillow that you're gonna land.
Yeah.
And I think Taryn Mack back about a month ago had something, it was the same sort of thing, it was like cat. Your son, she had to tell a client.
Yeah.
And you were like, Andrew, you're the only other person on the call here at the moment, what would you say? And I'm like, oh. But I'm the exact same way, but I think that there's a way to kind of still tactfully do it, like, for me, if it's, and that's the thing too, it depends on the relationship.
Yeah.
But I love that you asked that.
Yeah.
For me, if it's somebody I know, if it's a guy, I'm like,
Dude,
brother, listen,
fix it.
I love you, I gotta let you know, your house smells like pee,
Yeah,
is what it is.
yeah,
Like,
Yeah.
you're trying to hire me to get the most amount of money for your house.
right,
And damn it, I'm gonna do it.
yeah.
So,
So you're
I
gonna,
need
so
to
we're
tell
gonna
you.
fix it. Yeah,
bro, you gotta change it.
But it's how
And
you
it's-
say.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
like
Exactly.
how
You can, and
without being.
If it's more comfortable to you, do it the way that you feel like is going to be comfortable and you can still feel like it's a tactful.
but I'd still tell a story afterwards. I'd still,
Yes, yeah.
because now you're giving validity. So they're like, does it smell? Unfortunately, yeah, it does. And here's the problem. Everybody's house has odors or stuff, but when you're putting it on the market, it's gonna be new to them. So you gotta think of that new smell. So plugins aren't gonna cover that. We probably need to fix it.
Plugins are gonna look
Oh, yeah.
hella sus.
Yeah.
That's what kids say.
You're right.
You wanna make sure you come off as you're just the expert giving advice.
Yeah.
Not judgment.
Right.
No judgment.
There's no
Which-
judgment.
Sometimes if you just say it just plainly, oh, by the way, it smells like cat pee, just so you're aware. And I think sometimes if you make more out of it than what it
Yeah.
is, just, oh, also so you're aware, it does smell like cat pee.
Yeah.
And so it's less of a, hey, listen.
Yeah.
Like you're about to tell somebody that like they're gonna die.
Yeah. But it
So-
depends on the person.
It does.
Well, they
There's
have
just cats that are up
say,
there, so.
Chris mentioned a lot about people watching and listening,
Yeah.
and you can very quickly pick up, is this person very direct?
Yeah,
Then they want you to be direct with
Yeah.
them.
yeah,
Or do they need the fluff? Then
Yeah.
you should probably do yourself a favor and practice having a little bit of finesse around the hard words, but yes, so, you know, like I said earlier, clear is kind.
yeah,
And mirroring is a real thing. You have to mirror the person, you know.
Yeah.
We're gonna be doing some diving into the disc profile and.
Sarah doing that.
I love this.
Not yet, but yeah, we're gonna, and I think you said ID earlier, and I was like, yeah, we're gonna learn about
Yeah.
how, you know, how we operate, but more importantly, how our clients operate, so that we know how to have really effective communication, using all of these resources that we've been, you know, talking about the last couple months, but then taking into account what is the natural bent of the person I'm talking to.
Yeah.
Because you have to know, you know, Adrian needs to be talked to this way. Chris, I can have this kind of a conversation with. The
Yeah.
more you can sort of peg what type of person they are, the more effective conversation you'll have.
And it doesn't mean don't be you, you still can be you, but you gotta be you in a way that they can hear you. Because if you're too talk around it or too direct, they shut down.
Right.
So it's how they can take it in.
Or it's just asking them the question. If they ask you, does my house smell like cat pee? You can literally just say, well, what do you think?
Yeah.
No, he already, he said, I already know this, it smells like cat here.
Yeah.
They understand.
Yeah, he
My
knows.
house smells like happy.
He knows.
Track me.
Just what do you think?
Yeah.
Let them say.
And you're like, the nice thing about my company is that we can see how all of you guys interact with your clients. And so, for example, in Damaris, I love her to death, and we can be real honest with each other. Damaris is very direct with all her stuff, but her clients all know that she's very direct.
Yeah.
So like, if she were to have walked in a situation like that, she would have walked in, and before her client would have said anything, she's like, oh no, this Kathy's gotta go away.
Yeah.
This has gotta go away.
walked in there and been.
But,
Yeah.
yeah, but and you know, Amber, my cousin, so my cousin, if we were going to see a house, I would, if I would have smelled it before they did, I'd be like, no, we're out of here right now. Even though, like, it's supposed to be her judgment call, like, that's the conversation that I can have with her, because we have that closeness. But for your clients, you're gonna know right away which ones are gonna be like, you know, nervous Nellies, and which ones are like, I need to know what your thoughts are, because like, this looks a little suspect to me, you know?
There's a great tool that an agent who's been in the business for 47 years taught me one time, and I love it. So like, you walk in and it smells like cat pee, you're like, you just kind of, and they're like, oh, does it smell like cat? Is that what it is? And then they're like, what do you think I should do about it? Well, do you think I should fix it? Yeah, if I would fix it. You know, or you like, look at the ceiling tile that's got stuff on it, you're like, tell me about that. Oh, well, that was a leak that we fixed years ago. Okay.
Take your time.
Yeah, and you sometimes you don't even have to tell them, you just kind of look at it. And they're like, do you think we should get that fixed? Well, I would. Because that's somebody that doesn't want to be told, right? That's somebody that's very S and C or whatever. They're like, oh, I want to kind of hold everything to myself. They're not direct people. So you just, well, yeah, I would. And you just keep going. But if you make it the smell thing or look at it, they're gonna know.
I would even tell my listing clients, walk your house as if you were about to buy it for the first time. I want you to step
What do you see?
outside, and I want you to pretend that you have never set foot in this house before. You're walking in with fresh eyes. What do you think a buyer is gonna notice?
Yeah.
And when you give them that lens and they start walking through their house, make the list with them. Like, these are all the things that they're gonna start questioning. Well, it's not on the seller disclosure.
Yeah.
Or, well, what happened here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I take a picture of a room that's like super busy with all their knickknack stuff. And then I show it to them and I was like, they're gonna look at your house on an iPhone. What do they see? Can they tell how big that room is? No. Are they buying your stuff? No, well, then maybe we need to get rid of a lot of the stuff so they can see how big the space is. And it works every time, because people don't wanna get rid of their stuff.
They need to almost remove themselves a little bit, and showing them the picture kind of allows them to take a step back.
Then they realize there's 19 things on that counter.
Yeah.
It's like the wardrobe class that we went to and they said, instead of looking at a mirror, take a picture of you in your outfit.
Yeah.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'm actually gonna use all of this at work today.
Great.
Oh, good. This is the next conversation.
Have a good
Ready?
day.
Good luck.
Have a
Bye.
good day. I love that you were her alarm clock.
The whole premise
You
too
got
is
it.
this, the more you build trust, the easier it is to be more direct.
Yes.
Like the more you build the relationship and the trust, the more you can just say what you need to say, and you don't have to skirt around it as much.
One of the only other point I want to make sure that I get across, because this really spoke to me. It's just my personality. Do not apologize. In
I also do that.
I'm so sorry to bother you. Nope. I know, same.
I try to do it tactfully, but I know that it can, it's a habit that I wanna get out of, but I do it almost in I don't wanna say in a forceful way, but I'm like, hey, look, I'm so sorry to bother you, but by the way, blah, 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 but it's kind of to kind of lean into it, and I do it almost a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm saying sorry, but I'm also like,
But I'm really,
hey, I'm sorry.
but I'm really not.
I'm so far from sorry, it's not even.
Exactly.
I just need you to
Exactly.
understand.
They do
The
that
other-
too, because I do that as well.
Right, right.
And the other thing is, like, I'm sorry I'm late. Brittany, I'm so
I'm just-
sorry.
I'm
I'm so
Thank
sorry.
you
I'm
for
late
your
for that
patience.
meeting. And yes, instead of that, it's, thank you for your patience. Come at it from gratitude versus I'm sorry, because it just sounds.
Yeah,
coming at it
thank
from
you
a
for
place of
taking
positivity
my
for me.
call.
Not,
I need
not,
to tell
not,
you.
I'm sorry to bother you.
You know what, I always tell people this, if they are busy, they won't.
They won't answer.
Right,
Yeah,
And if they do, shame on them.
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Right.
There's voicemail.
Yeah, I'm sorry to bother you,
Right.
versus thank you for taking my call, which sounds more confident, which sounds more welcome.
People appreciate gratitude.
Yeah,
They do.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So that was another point that really stuck out to me, was stop using the word sorry and and stop using sorry as underselling myself and my confidence. Like, no,
Right.
like I'm not sorry that I'm bothering you. Like, I have a question. Like,
Yeah.
I have a question. That's all I have to say. I have a question. I don't need to say I'm sorry to bother you.
Right, and outside of, because I do like this one, I'm not sure if it's for you, but I do like that from exactly what to say.
Yeah.
Don't throw in all of those extra words, like, and this might be a stupid idea, but I was kind of sort of thinking.
No.
But that's not, I don't care
No.
what you say.
No.
And it's a stupid idea because
Yeah.
you just told me it was. So clearly it's stupid.
Yeah, you
and
didn't
therefore
think it
you
was a
must
good
be.
idea.
Yeah. Right, and it's so easy to do.
That was the thing, phone tag, I guess, the potential seller, driven by and thought it was for sale, right owner sign.
Yeah.
But I didn't know who the person's name was. So I called and left a voicemail, and he thanked me for leaving a voicemail, because ever since he had his for sale by owner sign, he's been getting all these spam calls. And then at the end of the conversation, I didn't know how to ask, like, so what was your name? I didn't know
Yeah.
what to say. I
Yeah.
said, I really enjoyed this conversation, but I didn't get your name.
Perfect.
And then,
Yeah.
oh,
And then he gave it to you.
I was like, oh, no, well, nice to meet you, Keith.
Right.
And I said, well, can I check back with you in a few weeks to see, how your process is going? Because he's moving to Tennessee, he's going to move to
Yeah.
another state. And, but he said he's not opposed to, having a realtor. He's just
Trying it on his own.
yeah, but he still has other work he wants to get to the house, and, cause I asked if I could, come by and see, he's like, well, it's not showable material or some more
Yeah.
that he did, so, well, can I check back with you in a few weeks to see how your process?
So for the future of that, you say, you know what, that's awesome, because I would rather get in to see it now before you spend time, energy, and money making improvements.
Might not.
That way we make sure that you spend that time, energy, and money wisely, because sometimes stuff that you think you have to do, you don't have to do, but there might be something else that's really important.
Yeah, cause he was focused on the deck outside, at the deck we were.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
But the kitchen's gonna bring back.
Right.
So I didn't wanna push, so I will check back with you in a few weeks to see.
That's where you practice pushing though.
Mhm.
That's
Okay.
exactly where you practice pushing, because you're,
Yeah, we talked, I think, on the 13th, so when is a few weeks?
you talked on the 13th?
Yeah.
Now,
Today. Yeah, today.
today,
Oh,
right now.
Right now, no.
Yeah.
Because here's what happened.
Oh, God.
I have had that happen. I've had that happen. People say, call me in a month, and I call them 3 weeks later, and they've signed listing appointment with somebody else. You know what I mean?
Okay.
People don't, A, remember what they say, and B, if somebody comes in, you come in and wow them, they don't even know who I am yet. So I cut it in half. If somebody says 3 months, month and a half.
Okay.
You know, and just say, okay, how would you guys start the follow-up conversation? Because just checking in isn't it?
No, I think I would call and say, hey, I know that you've been working on getting your home ready for sale. And then I would. just
How's
say
it going? Yeah.
Exactly what Shannon said.
And let them
Oh,
talk.
I guess I should tell him who I was too, right? I mean, who I am.
Well, yeah. Hey, remember, we had a
Yeah,
conversation.
It was really not, it was so easy. I thought, I wish all.
This next one will be easy too. You just have to start it off, just like, that's what I would recommend, is just, you said you were doing this, how's that coming along? Let him speak, let him word vomit, and then, take everything that he said and use that towards, building that relationship with him. Even get to a point where, like Shannon said, I would almost wanna use that to stop by the house, because now every touch point, every interaction is a rapport building moment. And so you're in that house with them, you're like, oh yeah, this looks great, blah, 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 blah. This bathroom could use a little updating, and wouldn't have to spend too much money on it, maybe a coat of paint, a new toilet, the small little things that would bring back ROI, because people look at things and they're like, ooh, I don't know about that. And then, when it comes time to submitting an offer, they think like a $500 toilet is $10,000 off the purchase price.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
A tactic that I learned is whenever you have that initial conversation with someone, always walk away with a fact or something that has nothing to do with real estate.
Mhm.
So then when you do that follow-up call, I have called people and asked them hey, so your son gave, or his wife gave birth, how's his daughter Bella doing?
Yeah.
You remember that? You remember
Yeah.
who Bella is?
Yeah.
Okay. And then,
That's the
get into
relationship.
Yeah.
real
So
estate.
he had mentioned that he wanted to get into real estate in the state that he moved to. He said, well, how's that going for you? And
Yeah.
Help them.
Yeah.
Help him get into real estate classes
Yeah.
wherever he's moving. I'll help you with that.
Okay.
I will help you with that. You can help him.
I felt like,
Yeah.
This program.
yeah, it was such a, we were laughing and like somebody I've known for a long
Yeah,
time. It was
that's great.
so easy and
All the more reason to call him back.
Yeah.
100%.
And that's gonna be, the real estate piece is gonna be a pain point for him in the future when he does move to the next place. And you already have that teed up for him, so that way it's a seamless transition for him. And that's essentially what all clients, anybody that you talk to, they just want a seamless transaction. They want a seamless, move. They don't want any bumps in the road. And the easier you can make it for someone, the better the relationship.
Yeah,
For
you
sure.
have an agent you're working with in South Carolina, I can connect you with an agent down there, and that's referral income for you.
Yeah.
I'll be very warm.
But always call with that, jab, jab, hook, value, then it's real estate.
Mhm.
100%.
Okay.
Any closing thoughts? Final thoughts? It was a small group today, and yet I feel like
I
it was
think,
mighty.
I was about to say, I think you and I talked about that, where we had once brushed off book clubs. Because we would get back these surveys, and it was just a small percentage of people that said, yes, I would like a book club. So we were like, oh, well, being leaders, we're thinking we need to be able to speak to the masses. And then we realized, no, actually, the book clubs might be most impactful to that smaller group of people. And it allows you to have deeper conversations when it's a smaller group.
Well, look at all we talked about that was ancillary to it.
Yeah.
It connected, but so many other things.
There
Yeah.
are many other things.
Yeah.
I like having conversations. Ultimately, whenever you're talking to a client, to a lead, to anybody, the main thing that, like, if I'm talking to a lead on the phone, the main thing that I'm trying to get that person on the other end of the phone to do is to tell me the truth, right?
Mm.
So to get somebody to tell you the truth, you have to get to I mean, obviously, yeah, we're all having a real conversation, but to get to a real conversation, like, let's get down to what's really going on, and then you know how to pivot from there. I like this because I feel like it's helping to, we're talking about, again, like you said, it's more of a peeling away the layers of, it's getting down to the core, gets down to the motivation. When you know the motivation, the pain, whatever it has, whatever's driving the
Right.
decisions,
Right.
you know how to start to steer.
Yeah, I wish that V and Grace were still here, because I do just want to sort of like emphasize, there are some newer agents in this room, there are some more experienced agents in this room. Because it's her birthday, her timeline was a little jaggy today, but Grace actually said to me, I really need to get my Think of It training done. Should I go home while I have a babysitter? Should I go home and just push through my Think of It training, or should I go to that book talk today? And I said, I want you to go to the book talk, because I want you to be in a room with other agents, because the environment that you're going to be sitting in this training room, and the words and the wisdom you're going to hear from other agents, the hour that you spend at home working on your jumpstart class, you can do that after Judah goes to bed. That will come, but this sort of an environment, this is what you, as a newer agent or an experienced agent, this is what you need to plug into. You need to be in this room.
Deals happen in the hallway.
Yep.
All the time.
All the time.
Yep.
Yep.
And learning from each other happens in the hallway.
Yep.
Because when you do come across, you have that phone call, you're like, ooh, how could I have handled that differently? You can walk down the hallway and
Yeah.
say, this is what happened, what advice? And then you can just call back and say, I thought about one more thing after we chatted.
Yeah.
The late great Jim Spagnuolo, told me when I was 18, said, no matter what, no matter where you go, be at the office, so many opportunities will present themselves to you. You will learn so much just by being present and just by being there,
Yep.
hearing everybody and understand that they all know more than you. But no matter what the experience level, you're going to get something from everybody. People seeing your face, seeing you around, that's where you said you will be a successful agent. Or he said something about, he's like, every successful agent at some point has to spend some decent, solid, quality time in the office.
I agree.
100%.
Yeah, and I think, I want to quantify, was a training or was a meeting successful based on the number of people in the room? And that was a real limiting belief that I had. It's around the dialogue. Like when Chris brought up people watching, but be people listening, like that's an aha moment for me. Like if, whether there was 8 of us or, 28 of us, I'm so glad that I was in this room with Chris, because that's something I'm going to be way more cognizant about.
Right,
Yeah.
and that's all it
One thing.
needs sometimes.
Quality.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, even just with like the larger conventions, oftentimes it's not the whole convention.
Mm,
It's like 1 or 2 lines, one of the speakers said.
Yeah.
That I'm going, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's what I needed to hear.
Or it's what you heard on the way to the conference room. for
yeah,
the-
or it's drinks afterwards with an
Spending
agent that
time,
you
yeah,
wouldn't have
exactly.
connected with. So yeah,
100%.
I appreciate all of you being here. And, yeah, and I will never, our rule of our book clubs are you do not have to read the book. So whether you read it or not, listen to it or not,
Chat GPT.
a summary.
But I can tell you,
Spark notes.
it's making me audible.
Audible is my friend.
It is.
When
I can't read them either. I fall asleep.
Yeah, Audible
Yeah,
is my
I
friend.
can't even get it through like the first, 5 pages.
No, but you know what? Audible, like, I Audible let them, I love listening to Mel.
Yep.
She's like, and they tell stories that she doesn't tell in the books.
Yep.
I was like, oh my God, that was brilliant. Same thing with this one. I can listen to Jefferson Fisher.
Yeah.
All day. He's just so freaking smart.
Yep.
I've learned with Audible, I almost find it peaceful, like if I can listen either in my car, it helps me not think about the things that are just not helping me. Or like going for a walk, or like even grocery shopping. Like I'll just sit there, I'll pop it in and I'm walking around, doing my thing, and like by the time I get out to the car with all my groceries, like I'm not out grocery shopping. And I got 30 minutes in this book, and I think what you don't get from like Blinkist or ChatGPT are the stories
Yeah.
that help you connect
Yeah.
the highlights.
Yeah.
Yeah, cause those are what resonate with me, like, oh, I understand now
Yeah.
how that works versus if you just tell me clear as kind or take a breath, like, well, everybody knows that.
Right.
You know, but hearing the story and how he does it.
Well, we do have a new incentive going on, which revolves around the training feedback. I have a sign posted there as you exit. If you would like to scan that QR code and just leave us some training feedback, we're working really, really hard to always improve our training calendar. And so we welcome any feedback. You can be anonymous or put your name on it. I don't care. I'll take it anyway. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So did you come from another birthday?
No,
I, just joined.